Thank you. Hi everyone, it's Arthi from the Human Chapters. I'll tell you a little bit about human chapters. Humans are living narratives with a past, present, and future. These narratives constitute of a number of chapters across a lifespan. The aim of these conversations is to highlight a chapter of the narrative and unpack its connections to other chapters. I don't care whether people are natural storytellers, but I truly do believe each one of us has a worthy story to share. An acknowledgement to country. We acknowledge the traditional owners of the land which now comprises Greater Shepparton. We pay respect to their tribal elders, past and present and emerging. We celebrate their continuing culture and we acknowledge the memory of their ancestors. And today our guest is Bella, and Bella's chapter is Refinding Home. And I'll pass on the floor to Bella to introduce. Go for it.
Thanks, Artie, and thanks for asking me. Feeling very honoured. And I'd also like to acknowledge that we're on Yorta Yorta land and always was, always will be. And yeah, really excited to be here with you. Tonight I thought I'd talk about refinding home. So for me, that was being here in Shep, growing up here and then leaving and then coming back and realising this was where my heart was and where I really wanted to be. So that will be my story.
That's beautiful. Bella, take us through your journey. What was life like in Shepparton? What took you away, and what brought you back home?
Yeah, absolutely. I have been told that I like the sound of my own voice, so just stop me if you need to, Artie. I can get pretty wordy, but so I grew up here. I had a family. I've always been really, really grateful for my upbringing. Had 3 lovely, at times, brothers, and went to good schools and had just love and support constantly around me. But in saying that, it doesn't really stop that whole conversation around, Shep's a hole. That was the biggest thing in school. Oh, Shep's such a hole. And I think it's just peer pressure thing and something to all kind of bond over, I'm not sure. But anyway, so that was kind of the general vibe. So there was not really any question as to what I'd be doing after school. It was always going to move somewhere. And I think in my head it was always Melbourne, and that's where I ended up. I was very lucky that that was an option for me. So I went down to Melbourne, and almost as soon as I got there, I think I realised how at home I was in Shep. I don't think I reflected on this at the time. But yeah, I really held on to a lot of those linkages with Shepparton, and still very close with girlfriends from and boys from high school, and things like that. But anyway, at the time when I was in Melbourne, that wasn't what I was reflecting on. I really enjoyed it. I had a fantastic time at university in Melbourne. I was lucky enough to live on residence, which was really, really fun. Moved out with some friends to finish off the last bit of my degree, all really, really fun. But I definitely came home quite a bit. And again, probably wasn't thinking about it at the time, but was drawn home. And then I finished uni. We moved out of our home and I came back home to save some money. And the idea was I was going to meet some friends of mine that were doing, I forgot the name of it, that were doing study abroad over in Mexico. So she was in Guadalajara. So I was going to go visit her, and some of my other friends were there as well. So one-way ticket to Mexico was what I ended up getting. Yeah, which was really exciting. And I saved up lots of money. I worked all through uni, obviously, and then I worked again when I was home saving money. And when I was home, I think was when I started to realise, and I was talking to a friend, and I remember we were both like, I don't think I realised just how high my anxiety was in Melbourne, at uni. Like, it was one of those things you don't recognise until you've got the comparison. And I was with my mum and dad again, and it was really, really lovely. And not that it had a particularly high bearing on life and things, but my mum was going through cancer at the time. So I think also that element of being at home, kind of again, subconsciously knowing I was there with her, was really, really helpful. And we've always had, our home's always had an open door policy. So we constantly had people dropping in, and it sounds weird to say now because COVID, you just can't do that, but it feels kind of strange. But really big open door policy. So also when I came home to save money, I was seeing family friends again, I was seeing high school friends again and all of that. And I started to feel a lot calmer. And like I said, I loved Melbourne. Like, don't get me, like, it was time of my life. It really solidified a lot of my critical thinking skills and stuff like that. So I would never change that for the world. But just that comparison of, oh, I think this is what it feels like to kind of be calm at my center. So that was really nice. And I just got a job while I was here and working. And as it happens, as life tends to throw, about 2 months before I was set to go, I met the boy that has now become my fiance. And it's meant to be casual, but it wasn't. And so we met, and we were both pretty bummed that, you know, I was going on this one-way trip, but I had to do that, and he was about to start uni. So he had to do that. So anyway, I went on this trip and loved it, got to see my friends. Lasted 3 months before I came home, and I kidded myself at the beginning and was like, oh, you know, I'm coming home for my mum, she's going through cancer and things. I was coming home for a boy. I was 100% coming home for a boy, but the feminist in me just couldn't admit to it at the beginning. But now I'm really open about it because it set me up for the rest of my time. But yeah, so much fun traveling. I traveled with friends, I traveled alone, and then I came home to be with Mitch, and he was living in Bendigo at uni at the time, so I was there, and that in hindsight was not a good move. I was so disconnected. You know, previously, before leaving, I was saving up money at home, so I had a lot of like, you know, I had something to look forward to. I knew what I was doing. Previously, before that, you know, I still in my head thought of home as Melbourne.
Yeah.
So, you know, I wasn't in Melbourne. I didn't have friends and things. It was just Mitch, and he was living with his brother at the time. And I felt really disconnected, and I had no purpose, and it wasn't good. And there was all those thoughts of, you know, I messed up. I shouldn't have gone. I shouldn't have left my trip, etc., etc. And then the next turning point, apart from meeting Mitch, was I got a phone call and got offered some casual work in Shep for someone who was running a not-for-profit, which is am I allowed to mention the name of places, Artie?
I think so, as long as they're okay with it.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure they would be. Yeah, so with Lighthouse, I wasn't sure if I was, but with the Lighthouse Project, and yeah, so I started working casually there, doing some admin. And in the beginning, I was driving over from Bendigo. And then I just started to stay at home more often than going to Bendigo because it was easier. And Mitch, at the same time, was going through his own journey and realising that the uni course he was in, which was a general arts course, wasn't for him, and he needed something more suited to what he's doing now, which is video production. So he was going through that. That was a bit tumultuous for him. So in the end, we both just said, let's find our feet back at mum and dad's. Yeah. And that was it. We were back in Shep. And I started working full time with Lighthouse. I loved it. It again gave me that purpose and passion. And what Lighthouse does is they work to support young people in a really holistic way, specifically in Greater Shepparton. And I think that was one of the factors that really connected me again. It showed me, I was working there, and, you know, different things would pop up and I'd be like, Shep's amazing. Yeah. You know, like Shep is amazing. And we were talking about Shepparton Festival. And I remember when I was younger and the Shep Festival was on, it was a thing that my parents took me to. It wasn't, you know, it was just a thing that my parents took me to. And then being my age now and being able to appreciate it. And that was one of the things where I was like, why did I ever leave? Like, Shepparton, it's got good people. It's got people who give enough of a shit to start a not-for-profit to support an entire cohort of people. It's got arts, it's got culture, you know, and Mitch and I both went on that journey where we were like, this is where we want to be. So we were living with my parents, we were saving money, and we decided then and there we were going to buy a house here in Shep. And that was kind of it. And it was really interesting. We both came up against, well, not up against, sorry, but friends from other places would be like, oh, have you thought about it? You know, definitely want to be Shep. Like once you've got a home loan, that's pretty, you know, that's it. You've got a home loan.
Yeah.
And we were like, yeah, that's the idea. You know, we're pretty serious, thinking kind of meaning, you know, we'd sort of just met. But anyway, so that was interesting, those kind of comments. And that's when I started to think back. And that's when I started to think back to my childhood. And I was like, why did I think Shepparton was such a hole? And it clearly wasn't. It was just that peer pressure of saying it. And started to reminisce on what made my childhood so amazing. And majority of it was my beautiful family and, you know, circle of people around me. But a lot of it was the location and Shepparton and the opportunities we had and the safety we had and stuff like that. So that was really good. And I think Mitchie and I both kind of went without saying that this is where we wanted our family to be as well. So yeah, so we were saving money, we made that decision, and then my mum passed away after a 5-year battle with cancer. She hated it being described as that, so I shouldn't say that, but she happened to have cancer and happened to die 5 years after getting it. Dusty! Sorry. 2 seconds. He's just excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, so mum passed away, which was difficult. And Mitch and I, that's him in the background, you can see him, and the dog, we stayed on with Dad. So we stayed on and kept saving money and kept living with Dad for a little bit longer, which was actually really nice. And then we were able to buy this place that we're in right now, which is really exciting. So this is our first home.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And we bought it here in Shep, and we love it. We love where it is. 2 of his aunties are around the corner.
Nice.
They're perfect. They tend to make food for us a lot. They're really lovely, and we never return their bowls or Tupperware because we're terrible. We've got lovely neighbours. We've got my dad at one end of town. My grandparents are around the corner from us. And it all clicked into place when we moved in. My family was able to help Mitch's family live in Kai. So they came over and helped. And again, we both reflected and were like, how lucky are we that we can be in this location? We can be in the house that we feel like we're going to be in for a long time and raise our family in. We can still feel like we've got the whole world in front of us in terms of what we want to do and what we can do. But the only way that is kind of possible, that kind of world is your oyster idea, is because we feel safe and happy and really settled here where we are. We've got family close, we've got opportunities close by. So I was working at Lighthouse, and then I've recently moved jobs and I'm working with council as youth development officer. And like those opportunities are just so abundant. And I mean, I know they're everywhere else as well. I'm pretty biased about Shepparton, but I feel like Shepparton in particular has got something really special about it. Mitch runs his own business. So he runs a video business and Be Creative, and like he's running that off of the connections he's made living here and growing up here and things like that. So those are the kind of opportunities we really love. And we both came to realize that Shepparton is amazing. And I think that's how we came to kind of re-find our home. And we realized that, you know, so corny, but for a reason, that home is where your heart is. And, you know, Mitch and I refer to each other as home, we're each other's home, but I think in reality it's home here in Shepparton. It's just a beautiful place to be. And I wonder if I don't know that everyone realizes it from the get-go. Like I said, I had such a good childhood. I had every opportunity afforded to me. I had a really, really lucky childhood. And I still thought of Shep as a whole. I mean, it's an interesting kind of something to unpack, and something that through my work working with youth is something I think about a lot. Do you have to go through these motions of being away from it to then re-find it again? I'm not sure. But yeah, that's my chapter.
Wow. Okay, so I have a few questions for you. One is about, you talked about, I'll take you back to, not to Melbourne, but after you left Melbourne, you realized that you were anxious, but within that particular time, you didn't realize it. What what was that reflection? What was your hindsight that actually got you thinking about how anxious you were?
I think it was at first, I mean, you always feel safest with the people who are your safe people, which for me was, I was lucky enough to have as my parents. So when I came home, it was just the feeling of being home. But when I was home for a prolonged period of time and I was working and all that kind of stuff, I started to realize that I felt a lot happier. I couldn't really put my finger on it, but I just felt a lot happier, and I hadn't thought about it too in depth until I had lunch with a friend, and they had moved back to their where they grew up. And we were both kind of talking about it, and they were the ones that said, oh, I feel like I was constantly heightened when I was studying in comparison to now being back at home. And that was like that kind of jigsaw puzzle moment that just fell in, and I was like, yes, that is exactly how I felt. You know, like there's so much happening in Melbourne, and it's such a great place to be, and you've got so much on offer, and you've got so much I was there for education, and the education opportunities were amazing. But the whole time was kind of this, it was a lot. It was a lot. And
yeah,
you're young and you're anxious. Me specifically, I was young and I was anxious. And I think a lot of it was like, am I doing the right things? Am I having the right experiences you're meant to have when you're at uni? Am I making the right connections? Am I making the right friends? Like a lot of that kind of feeling. And it all went away when I was at home. But like I said, I think it was that prolonged period of time that enabled the comparison, because obviously I'd come home for weekends and things when I was in Melbourne, but yeah, it was that prolonged period of time, I think, that made me realize, shit, okay, maybe I wasn't mentally healthy when I was in Melbourne.
Yeah. And I really like the way you said something. You found your grounded center. Is that what is that? What does it feel like?
So for me, it was my mum. My mum was my grounded center through and through.
Yeah.
Which I think, you know, growing up that your parents are, but again, that whole coming back, leaving to go traveling, coming back, kind of that kind of circle of the way it went down. I think I realized that the key for me was my parents, and no disrespect to my dad, who I also adore, but mum was kind of that linchpin person for us. And like I said, we were that drop-in house, and that was mum's vibe and her energy that enabled that. That wasn't really all of it, you know, that was her that created that space. So for me, that grounding and centering was mum. But moving back is when I realized that that grounding went a touch further than mum. So it was mum here in Shepparton, because mum loves Shepparton, and you know, she chose to be here with dad and raise her family here as well. That was the decision they made. So you could really tell that through the way we were raised, that mum loved where she was and dad loved where he was. So when I moved back again for that prolonged period of time and realised that mum was my centre, but I was at my truest centre when I was with mum in Shepparton, and in amongst this kind of centre of people who I appreciated.
Yeah. Oh, that is so beautifully put. Thank you so much, Bella.
It's a bit corny, I know, but it's definitely true.
It's not though, and it is that for you. So that's really, really lovely. Okay. So, and then my other question was going to be, for people that are not in Australia but are watching, Shepparton is a whole. What does that mean?
Yeah, so I should probably explain that. So a hole is in like it's nothing. It's just a big hole and there's nothing there. So like a dirt trench. So the idea being that it's just shit. So I think it was shortened from shithole to hole. So, the outback dunny, kind of dig out the hole and go to the bathroom to relieve yourself. That was kind of that that idea. But like I said, I'm pretty sure it was just something to say with people at school. Like, I don't know that I ever truly believed it. I think I just said it.
Yeah. No, fair enough. Okay, so that's clarified. And then you mentioned when you were afforded that job, the opportunity to work at Lighthouse, you found your purpose and passion. What is your purpose and passion?
I'm so sorry, Artie, you just froze.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're all good now.
Oh,
I just need you to repeat the question. Sorry, Artie.
no, that's all right. Okay, so you talked about gaining the position at Lighthouse, a not-for-profit organization, and you mentioned you found your purpose and passion there. What is your purpose and passion, and can you pinpoint it to any specific moment when you started that job that allowed for that realization or reveal to happen?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure about a specific moment. I think like I said, I started just doing a little bit of admin work. And I think my purpose came, the role really gave me, and my boss at the time really gave me that purpose, which was kind of this conundrum of, we have this many young people in Greater Shepparton, but this is what all of our results are saying in terms of how well they're going. And it wasn't going well. And it was quite a scary thought, given I technically fell into that at the time, that what was declared young person age range. So that gave me that purpose of, okay, now is my chance to give back to the community that gave so much to me, and make sure that what was given to me is able to be given to everyone who is in the community, and not just, like I said, I had a pretty privileged upbringing. So not just the me's of the world, but also everyone in the community, no matter where they're at in their lives. So that's where I got that purpose from. And I attribute a lot of that to, my boss at the time, Lisa, who was amazing, and just kind of started this not-for-profit organisation, just essentially wanting to encompass all the young people in Greater Shepparton in a giant hug and make sure they're doing well. So that's where that purpose came from. And I think the connection to specifically connecting it to my love of Shepparton came from, having dinner table conversations with mum and dad, and kind of talking about the experiences I had growing up. And that was where a lot of that reflection came of, like, oh yeah, I was able to play sport, winter and summer sport. I was able to get a job as soon as I was of age. Like, those kind of opportunities and things were spoken about. So that's when I think those moments around the dinner table was when that purpose became specific to, okay, I don't think I just want to work with youth. I think I want to work with youth in my area, and work to connect my community, and connect myself back to my community even further. So I think that's where that purpose and out of that grew a really natural passion as well.
Yeah, that's so incredible to listen to, Bella. And it makes me think about the question you posed at the end of your chapter just a few minutes ago, asking, do people need to go away to realize what they had? And then for me to pose to you, what does a young person, youth, first of all, what is the age range, and what are they looking for in a town that's happening?
Yeah. So the age range, the UN specified age range is 12 to 25. So that's, you're technically a young person within that age range. And I think young people are just looking for a place where they can be happy and safe, and kind of, there's a term for it, but I can't recall it, but it's taking those kind of considered risks. As kids, you're always kind of doing cheeky shit. So taking those considered risks in an environment that's still going to accept you and love you, and, slap you on the wrist and make sure you're doing the right sort of thing. And I think that's what young people are looking for. But yeah, like I said, it's a conundrum I've thought about a lot in the work that I'm in. And I had all of that, all of the stuff I just said, yet I still felt the crippling need to leave. And I know a lot of my friends did as well, and they're now living really wonderful lives elsewhere, and they're loving it, and they still come home and things, and it's really, really great. So I'm not sure what that key element is, but I think whether it's leaving for a long period of time or whether it's even just a reflection process, and that's triggered by leaving, reflecting on what you have or what you had, or that sense of feeling. Like I said, my centre was my mum, so and then what grew from that was it being Shepparton. So what's everyone else's centre, and how can you connect that back to Shepparton? So yeah, it's a really good question, and it's definitely one that I know you're posting us online, so anyone got any ideas, hit me up. I'd love to talk about this further. But and I think there's also potentially an element of leaving to gather skills and reinvent yourself if you want to, do whatever you need to do in those early stages of life to make sure you're living your truest self. And then coming back and giving those skills back to the community, which is what I feel like I've done.
Absolutely. And it might be a good segue if people do know about what else we could do to help the youth in our community. That would be awesome. But Bella, you talked about your current role with the council. Are you allowed to tell us a little bit about what you do, what you're looking for? That would be so wonderful to listen to.
Absolutely. And I better preface it by saying that I'm speaking as Bella, the individual, tonight. So nothing I'm saying is council's opinions on anything. It's just mine. But so I'm Youth Development Officer. So I've only been in the role since about May this year. And I have been telling lots of people this. I never thought I'd end up working at council, but I'm actually loving it a lot. So working in a fabulous team, so the youth development team, and we work to roll out the red carpet to young people, agencies, organisations that work with young people to make sure that they're doing the best that they can with what they've got to support young people. So whatever that looks like. So it might be we engage and link with schools and support the running of advocacy workshops, or it might be that we engage and work with young people specifically around a certain idea that they might have. So stuff like that. So it's a really fantastic role, and it's kind of a facilitating, engaging role. So it harks back to a lot of what I was talking about before around my passions, which I love. And we've just started up a youth committee. So we've got 14 young people starting on that soon. So more young people directly getting their voice directly into council. So it's a great role, and it does a lot of great things. And yeah, if anyone wants any help with anything youth related from council, call council front desk and ask for Bella.
Brilliant. Oh, that's awesome. How rewarding. It sounds really quite rewarding. And at the same time, of course, there will be those challenges, but overall, to be able to, have a cushion for the community.
Yeah, exactly. And no, I really, really love it. It's really nice being in a supportive role that connects and understands the beautiful strengths of young people. And that was in my last role as well with Lighthouse. So I've felt very lucky with the roles that I've had. And like I said, I think that passion was nurtured and encouraged at Lighthouse, and then has now enabled me to kind of take it to other places around town and spread it around, which is really exciting. So it's a really fun role to be able to work in, and one that not just me, but everyone in the youth team, are excited to be part of as well. So yeah, it is rewarding.
That's wonderful. My other question was, and you've mentioned bits and pieces for this. You talked about Shep being amazing. You talked about the arts, the culture. For someone who isn't in Shepparton, for someone who only knows Shepparton by whatever reputation, whatever they've heard about it, would you like to expand on why Shep is amazing for you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. My favorite topic. So, so Shepparton, anyone who hasn't been here, Shepparton's about 2 hours straight up from Melbourne, which is down along the coast of Victoria. So Shepparton is an absolute gem of a place. It is full of different cultures and different people with different experiences. We've got one of the largest Aboriginal groups outside of the urban areas, and we've got some of the largest, I think, refugee population as well outside of urban areas. So we've got tons of amazing people, essentially, in a nutshell, is what that means, who create wonderful things for our community. So we've got a Shepparton Arts Festival that runs every year that showcases our beautiful art, from, you know, music through to the, you know, the painted kind of painted art form as well. We've got restaurants that celebrate all the different cultures. One of my favorites is the Syrian place that I've forgotten the name of all of a sudden, even though I eat there all the time, on Wyndham Street, on High Street. Oh no, Nedal's Kebabs. Yeah. Give you a shout out. We've got like places like that. We've got festivals that celebrate all the amazing people. So we've got a festival called Converge, which is this big festival celebrating all the different cultures we've got more specific festivals that happen revolving around food, that celebrate our people in certain areas. We've got amazing amenities, which I know sounds really lame, but we have really great amenities. We've got a beautiful hospital, it's just getting redone. We've got a gorgeous art museum that's about to open, which is going to bring with it a whole heap of art culture. We've also got a beautiful lake, big beautiful space for the community to enjoy, and they do out there, you know, pre-COVID, that was the place to be, of a Friday and Saturday night, cooking a barbecue and letting the kids play safely. We've got amenities such as tennis courts. We've got multiple sporting grounds for kids, young, old people to play and enjoy. And I think most importantly, for anyone who's not here, what we have is a community. So we have a really community vibe. So we're 60,000 or so, is that right? People in Greater Shepparton. So there's us at the Greater Shepparton here, and then we've got other towns around us, and it all forms part of Greater Shepparton. And it feels like a community. So it feels like you're in a country town with, you know, only got the chemist and the post office. But it's not. It's almost it's a regional city. It's a regional hub. And that's the vibe that you get when you're here. So despite the fact that you might walk past someone down the street you've never seen before, you're also going to walk 20 times a day past that person that you know so deeply well, that you went to school with and uni with and everything. So it's a really great place to be. You've got opportunities to celebrate and get involved in arts and culture through those festivals, but you've also got opportunities to get involved generally with community and volunteering, and there's lots of jobs here too. So if you need one, come on down. Through different places, like we've got neighbourhood houses, and we've just got people who really, really give a shit about the community and really care about each other. And that's the biggest takeaway for me from Shepparton. So if you're anywhere in the world right now, come visit, come see it. It's really awesome.
Absolutely, when it's safe.
Sorry, after COVID.
My other question to you was, or rather, you talked about family being really close by, Mitch's aunts, your dad, your grandparents and stuff. So experiencing COVID and reflecting on that, what have been your takeaways, or what have been your highlights? So just, things that you've learned.
Through COVID.
Through COVID, about your family being close by. Like, you always loved family, but what have you appreciated differently or more? Or
it's a great question. Something that I think is quite comforting is just knowing family are there. So my brothers, two of my brothers are in Melbourne, and one is in Geelong with his fiance, and they haven't physically been there, but I feel like we're closer than ever, constantly talking online, having trivia nights, all those kind of things that you have. But it's also really comforting physically having Mitch's aunties right here, his auntie and uncle, having my grandparents right there. And even though you're not seeing them, it's just knowing that they're there, and, you know, you drive to work and you see them getting the mail or whatever it is. So we've found what we've realized is that comfort of knowing that family is physically close by has been really, really comforting. And must have been in the middle of in between lockdowns where we were able to get away for my dad's 60th, and we just had Mitch's auntie come around and Mitch's cousins come around and check on our dog and check on the house and stuff while we were here. So that was really awesome. So that connection, but knowing, I think what COVID's helped is it's physically right there, you know, you're so close, and you might not actually talk very often, but you just know that they're there and support you fully. So that's been kind of that learning where it's like, oh, okay, I don't have to physically see my family every day to understand that we share an unbreakable bond. Particularly with my grandparents, because they've been really onto it with the COVID rules, as everyone should be. But, you know, they're in that older age range, so we really haven't seen a lot of them. But again, feel closer than ever. They've all nailing technology and phone calls and different things. It's awesome. So feeling really connected to them. So for our biggest takeaway has been that kind of that at a certain level your family is your family, and you don't necessarily have to constantly be in each other's lives, or in each other's like faces, to remember that. So that's been probably one of our biggest takeaways.
That's wonderful. Now, Bella, have I asked you a good range of questions? Have you wanted to say something that I haven't even thought about or haven't asked you about before?
No, I feel like I've covered everything, I guess. I know you did ask for like key takeaways. So for me, I guess my key takeaway for everyone or anyone who's listening is that reflection around what's your center, what grounds you, and also maybe just kind of talk up Shep a bit more. Let's change the narrative around town, remove the word whole from everyone's mouths, and start talking more about what makes it so great.
Absolutely. And I think, you've done a wonderful job in articulating why or what you like about Shepparton and what you resonate with. So no, thank you so much. But yes, everybody, enjoy watching this chapter. Feel free to share it with anyone you think that might resonate with it. And of course, if you have any suggestions for Bella and for anyone living in Shepparton that we can do to help our youth, that would be awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
No worries.